Yeah. I gotta read now. I have to read the article. Navigating financial risk. Oh my God. I wonder how, well, watch, like this is like, oh. I don't know. I'm gonna read it. Right.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir. We're still gathering here.
You're welcome. I'm so.
Greetings, this is Jim Lutzelter here remotely.
Good afternoon, Jim. We'll get started in a few minutes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Chairman Winslow, we're ready to get started whenever you are.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dallas Winslow, Chairman of the Delaware Public Service Commission. We welcome you all to the meeting of January 29th. And first thing on the agenda is the reading of the meeting minutes of January the 8th. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, Commissioner Correa.
I move that we adopt the minutes of January 8, 25. I second.
Is there any discussion on the motion made? Hearing no discussion. uh, Commissioner Korea,
Aye.
Commissioner Conaway,
Aye.
Commissioner Drexler,
Aye.
Commissioner Gray.
Chairman Winslow, Commissioner Gray is absent today.
And I'll be voting aye. Thank you, Matt. And so we have 4 of the 5 commissioners present, and all 4 have voted in favor of the motion, which carries. The next is the consent agenda. I'm sorry, I apologize. Just back up. Public comment. Is there anyone who's there and present who would like to make, or on the phone or Zoom, that would like to make a comment to the Public Service Commission? If there's someone there, please come forward.
Chairman Winslow, there's no one in the room and appears no one on Zoom would like to make a comment.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Hartigan. Consent agenda. Anybody wish to have anything taken off the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda? Doesn't appear so. So Commissioner Conaway,
We adopt the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing no discussion, we will vote. Commissioner Korea,
Aye.
Commissioner Conaway,
Aye.
Commissioner Drexler,
Aye.
and myself is an aye, and that the motion carries. Number 1 on the regular agenda is in the matter of the application of Tidewater Utilities, Inc. for approval of deferred accounting treatment for costs associated with lead service line identification and inventory. And we have hopefully Ms. Scott to discuss this with us.
Yes, you do, Chairman Winslow. Thank you very much. Members of the commission, Pam Scott, here on behalf of Tidewater Utilities, Inc. I also have with me to my right, Bruce Patrick. So Tidewater filed this application on July 18th, requesting approval for deferred accounting treatment for costs associated with lead service line identification and inventorying as required by the EPA's lead and copper rule. At the time we filed the petition, we estimated that these costs would be approximately $2.1 million. On September 18th, 2024, the commission entered order 10540, which granted Tidewater's request to establish the regulatory asset for these costs. And the commission proposed and required that Tidewater propose a method for recovery. And in the order, it also stated that the proposed method of recovery will be a temporary rate rider to recover a fixed amount over a period of time not to exceed 3 years. We met with staff and DPA on November 25th, 2024 to discuss our proposed methodology and to answer any questions that they might have. And then following that, we made a filing on December 2nd, 2024, consistent with the discussions we had with staff and DPA, where we proposed recovery for these costs as a temporary rate rider for a period not to exceed 3 years. The rider would be on general metered service customers, and it would be a fixed charge. We estimated that this cost would be on a monthly basis, $1.02, and on a quarterly basis, $3.06. We further proposed that the 3-year recovery period, at the end of this period, we would calculate a final true-up and would discuss with staff and DPA the ultimate recovery if there was an over or under. Before the commission today is order number 10636, which approves Tidewater's proposed method of recovery for the amount of the regulatory asset of $2.1 million. The order provides that the amount of the asset will be recovered through a temporary rate rider that would be applied to customers under the general metered service rate and for a period not to exceed 3 years. The order further provides that the fixed amount to be recovered would be on a monthly basis $1.02 or on a quarterly basis $3.06. The order provides as well that Tidewater would keep staff and DPA apprised of the recovery of any changes to the estimated cost amounts and any additional costs that may be incurred in order to further identify any unknown service lines. And finally, the order provides that Tidewater will work with staff and DPA to mitigate any possible over or under recovery of the regulatory asset, and that any such over or under recovery will be discussed with the parties and presented to the commission at a future date. Tidewater would like to thank staff and DPA for working with us in this regard, and we would ask that the order as proposed be adopted by the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Ms. Workman?
Hi, Chair. Kate Workman for staff. Staff agrees with the representations made by Tidewater to the commission today and recommends the commission permit Tidewater to create such a rate rider and adopt order number 10636. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Price?
Yes, the DPA has reviewed the materials provided to us by the company, and we too agree with the rate rider. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions of the parties?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have a question. It is Kim Drexler. I have a question, Ms. Scott, and that is, what's an average bill on a monthly basis for a Tidewater client, like a ballpark?
Could I ask Mr. Patrick to answer that
Yes.
question?
Yes.
You want to be sworn before or just microphone?
Hi, good evening. I'm Bruce Patrick, President of Tidewater Utilities. So an average bill, and we just did a calculation based on our tariff, and this may be a little more than average. I assume 15,000 gallons per quarter. However, our customers are using more around 11 to 12,000 gallons per quarter. But all in all said, for the 15 that I assumed, it was somewhere between $730 to $740 on an annual basis. So in theory, it would be just a little bit less than that with the lowering down to about 11,000 gallons per quarter versus a 15.
So 700 annually.
Yes, annually. Yeah.
So it's maybe a little more than 1% to a couple percent of the bill. Okay, thank you very much.
Any further questions? Commissioner Drexler?
I move that we approve proposed order 10636 as presented.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Commissioner Correa,
Aye.
Commissioner Conaway,
Aye.
Commissioner Drexler,
Aye.
and I vote aye. The motion carries. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Number 2 is in the matter of the regulation governing residential electric or natural gas service by, it's hard to read off my telephone.
Chairman Winslow, I think
It's number 2 and it's proposed order number 10641. And we have hopefully Courtney Emerson to explain this to us.
yeah, Chairman, it's the number 2 on the docket is Artesian's request for the same thing that we just did with Tidewater.
I apologize. I'm trying to work off my iPhone and it's not easy to do. Okay, number 2, I think I saw Mr. Spate in the audience and I guess Courtney Emerson as well.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair Winslow and Commissioners. Courtney Emerson on behalf of Artesian Water Company. I am joined here today by Dave Spake, our CFO. We're here today on docket number 240951. Approval of Artesian's proposed method of recovery of the amount within its lead and copper regulatory asset, excuse me. Specifically, Artesian requests to recover $170,000 via temporary rate rider to recover a fixed amount from each customer on each bill for a period not to exceed 1 year. Artesian proposes that the temporary rate rider shall become effective February 1st, 2025, and that the amount imposed under the temporary rate rider shall be 15 cents per month. Artesian will keep staff and the DPA apprised regarding the recovery of the regulatory asset and any additional costs related to the further identification of any unknown service lines as set forth in the proposed form of order. Artesian shall work with staff and the DPA to mitigate any possible over or under recovery of the regulatory asset, including possible revisions to the temporary rate rider amount. Any over or under collection of the regulatory asset and any recovery or refund of such will be discussed by the parties and presented to the commission at a future date. As you'll recall, in August 2024, we filed an application seeking approval of deferred accounting treatment for costs associated with lead service line identification and inventorying, which the commission approved in Order 10541. In that order, the commission required Artesian to file its proposed method of recovery of the amounts within the regulatory asset no later than 45 days following the submission of the identification and inventory to the EPA. The initial service line inventory as required by the LCRR was submitted on October 16th, 2024, and we filed the instant request on December 16th, 2024. We understand that the DPA and PSC staff support Artesian's proposal, and we thank them for their efforts in reaching an agreed form of order. We respectfully request that the commission enter Order 10642, which would approve the 15-cent per month rider effective February 1st, 2025, for a period not to exceed 1 year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Workman?
Thank you, Chair Winslow. Staff once again agrees with the representations made by Artesian to the commission, and staff recommends the commission allow the temporary rate rider and adopt order number 10642.
Thank you. Ms. Price?
Let the record reflect that DPA has no objection to the proposed order. It does not support it, but it has no objection. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Price. Commissioners, do you have any questions of the parties? It doesn't appear that there are any questions. Commissioner Curria?
I move that we adopt order number 10642.
I second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Commissioner Curria,
Aye.
Commissioner Conaway,
Aye.
Commissioner Drexler,
Aye.
and I vote aye. The motion carries. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Now I can do number 3, and that will be, I guess, Victoria Sweeney. So,
Yes, Chair. Thank you very much. Victoria Sweeney on behalf of staff. Today for the Commission's consideration is proposed order number 10641. As the Commission may recall, I previously ordered that the regulation 3002, which governs termination of residential electric or natural gas service by public utilities for non-payment during extreme seasonal temperature conditions. That's a very long title. I'll just call them the regulations. Approved for staff to go ahead and start the process to make some changes. And that was in order number 10561. To refresh the Commission's recollection, those changes regarded changing Delaware's temperature threshold for disconnections during the cooling season, permitting utilities to connect and disconnect customers remotely, and staff found that these proposed changes would reduce utility expenses related to such disconnections and align the Commission with best practices used throughout the country. So we went ahead and we submitted the proposed regulations to the registrar for publication in the January 2025 register. However, for unknown reasons, there was a misprint in the proposed regulations. So this order is asking that the Commission grant staff the ability to work with the registrar to reproduce and republish the proposed regulation with an errata and extend the comment period and push back the hearing date so that folks can be heard on this matter. You'll notice that the proposed order before you does not have a set date for the hearing that would be held on the proposed regulations or have a deadline for the written comment period. And that is simply to avoid what we're doing here today. The eventual notice that will be published in the register will have those dates and times and will comply with the code as necessary. And we'll work with staff to get that posted and on the website so that everyone has notice and is aware of what's happening when. So staff is requesting that the Commission adopt the proposed order as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Sweeney. Ms. Price,
No objection.
commissioners, any questions? Hearing no questions, Commissioner Conaway.
Move that we adopt proposed order number 10641 as presented. I second the motion.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, and I say aye as well, so that's 4 ayes and the motion carries. You guys are very alert. I'm glad we got that done. Okay, next is number 4, proposed order number 10643. And I believe that we have Nate Felsman here to explain this to the commission.
Your Chair Winslow, this is Kate Workman. I'm going to be handling this one.
Well, once again, I'm one off. Yes, thank you.
This is in the matter of adopting rules and regulations to implement the provisions of Title 26-203F of the Delaware Code relating to renewable energy interconnection facilities. This is a new regulation. We're not amending it. Staff has drafted this in order to comply with the statute that went into effect in September of 2024. The statute gives the commission authority over the issuance of CPCNs for the siting of renewable energy transmission facilities, with the goal that Delaware is trying to have zero net additions of greenhouse gases to the atmosphere by 2050. And so the commission has been given authority by the legislature to adopt the application process for the CPCNs. Staff drafted the regulation to make CPCN application requirements clear, consistent, to provide a fair and comprehensive process without placing an undue burden on entities who apply for such CPCNs. The statute requires staff to work with both DelDOT and DENREC in order to properly site such facilities. Now, the law focuses on wind facilities. However, the law and the regulations proposed are for all renewable energy siting. If all goes well, then the proposed regulations should be published in the March edition of the Register of Regulations, after we are able to get approval from, the registrar's office. We are going to make sure we get the public notice out, and then we're going to schedule a hearing that coincides with the commission's regularly scheduled meetings so that the public can be heard on the new regulations. And staff requests that the commission grant their petition to open a rulemaking proceeding on this matter and to adopt order number 10643. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Workman. I don't believe there's anybody else that's present that wishes to speak on this matter. Am I mistaken, or is that correct? No one's speaking up, so I assume I'm correct. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Hearing none, Commissioner Correa?
I move that we adopt the order number 10643. Second the motion.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Commissioner Correa?
Aye.
Commissioner Conaway?
Aye.
Commissioner Drexler?
Aye.
And I vote aye. The motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Workman. The next matter is number 5, and it's in the matter of the provision of standard offer supply to retail consumers, etc. And we have, I believe, Nate Felsman to discuss this with us.
Yes, good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. On Monday, January 27th, 2025, Delmarva staff, Commission staff, and the Commission's technical consultant, Liberty Consulting, monitored Tranche 2 of Delmarva's Standard Offer Service, or SOS auction. Here today representing Liberty is Jim Letzelter. Dr. Letzelter is a management consultant with over 30 years of experience in the electric power industry, including, as you will recall, previously serving as the Commission's technical consultant for 9 years for the SOS periods of 2013 to 2021. The slide presentation can be found linked on the Commission's agenda for those who would like to follow along and may be viewable on stream. At the end of the public presentation, staff would respectfully ask you to approve the bids. If you wish to review the actual bid results, the Commission can vote to go into executive session for a confidential presentation. And I'll let Mr. Letzelter take it away.
Thank you, Nate, and good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. Always a pleasure. And I will be speaking to a presentation that should be visible, but I can't see necessarily what you're seeing. If someone could confirm that the presentation is up for your view.
Yes, Jim, we have it.
Okay, I've got my own copy of it here, so that's fine. So if you could move on to the first slide, please, the executive summary. Just as a review of what Liberty's role is here, we are the technical monitor for the SOS procurements. And on this Monday, the 27th, we had Tranche 2, which we can confirm were well run, and they were consistent with the RFP. They were competitive. We had good participation and bid activity, and they most importantly resulted in prices that were consistent with the prevailing market conditions. Next slide, please. As usual, Liberty's role, which hasn't changed for many years, is to review the materials and supplier communication, to get word out, and to actively communicate to prospective bidders what we need them to do, to review their website access, and ultimately monitor their eligibility so they can become bidders. We confirm the NLX fee structure, and then we develop a power market assessment and approve opening prices for all of the blocks. And then finally, we monitor the auction and confirm the results, which we're here to talk about today. So next slide, please. As an overview, there were 5 total blocks up for auction this past Monday, totaling about 243 megawatts. 4 of them were the residential and small commercial and industrial, aka risky class blocks, and 1 was the medium general service, or MGS. There are no blocks up for auction of LGS, large general service, or GSP, general service primary, for any of the Tranche 2 auctions as usual. Each of the blocks has a specific delivery period associated with it. The risky blocks are for 2 years commencing June 1st of 2025, and the MGS are for June 1st of 2025, but for only 1 year. And the same applies to the previously procured blocks of LGS and GSP in Tranche 1. Next slide. One of the key gauges of competition is the level of participation in terms of the number of bidders. And so this table shows that over the last 6 years, participation, especially in terms of the number of companies that become eligible on that middle row and actual bidders on the last row, was very good. And it was at 8 for each of the last 2 tranches, including Monday's Tranche 2. Next slide. This table shows a breakdown of the bidders and the number of bids placed by those bidders for the last 2 years of the Tranche 2. So it's the January auction of 2024 versus the auction this week, January 27th. And you can see that there was slightly higher number of bidders in this auction and slightly higher number of overall bids. And before you move on, I just, in case someone has eagle eyes, and notice that in 2024, on the previous slide, it shows 8 actual bidders, but it shows no more than 6 in any of the blocks. That's because different bidders bid on different things. So we had a total of 8 different bidders, but no more than 6 for any of the risky blocks and 5 for the MGS block. So next slide, page 7 now. Part of what we do is a market assessment to gauge what the market is doing in terms of primarily energy and capacity markets, because those are the 2 key drivers of the bid prices, although there are other things that are rolled up into the supplier's bid. And to that end, we identify and analyze market conditions to take a look at to see if there are any adverse market conditions that would lead us to postpone the auctions or cause potential chaos in the markets and require a third tranche if blocks weren't full. And we also establish opening prices for the blocks. It's just a starting point, and then the bidders move down from there trying to win. And then finally review NLX's estimate of the range of winning prices for each block that's expected. And then we look at the final bids and see where they come out in terms of what the expectations were as a judge of the reasonableness. And we concluded that there were no adverse market conditions and that the auctions should proceed, and they did. Next slide. So taking a look at the energy market in PJM, and this is specifically the DPL zone's energy price over 3 different periods. The red line signifies the 2025 tranche 2 that just happened. And this is the wholesale power market price, forward prices being actively traded now. And we compare that red line with just a couple of months ago, in November, when we had tranche 1, which is the dashed black line. And you can see that the red line most recently is higher than both the dashed black line and the solid black line. The solid black line shows what the market was in a year ago in tranche 2 in 2024. And there are a number of ways to look at it. The 2 bullets represent tranche 2 versus tranche 1, and then the second bullet is tranche 2 versus tranche 2 of last year. And within each of those views, we can look at the 1-year delivery period average and the 2-year delivery period average. And one thing is clear, that regardless of any of the dimensions you look at, how you slice and dice this, prices are a lot higher now as of this tranche than they were just a couple of months ago for tranche 1, and much higher than they were in tranche 2 of last year. And this is true of both the 1-year and 2-year delivery periods. And these are key components of what go into a supplier's bid price. Next slide. PJM is a market where energy prices, in terms of locational marginal prices, are set by a marginal unit that is being run at any hour, and those units are typically gas-fired units. So we take a look at natural gas prices, and you can see that consistent with what we saw in the previous slide for power prices for energy in the DPL zone. We looked at the gas price for Transco Zone 6 non-New York, which is applicable for the DPL zone generators and others in PJM, and we see the same thing that we saw in the energy prices, and that is that tranche 2 showed much higher values in the forward markets for this commodity versus just the last tranche 1 and last year's tranche 2. Next slide. And that's something you want to see. I mean, you don't want to see higher prices, but it at least adds some credibility to what you see when you know that the gas prices and energy prices are in line with one another, since one sets the other. So, and just to confirm that, finally, we always plot the gas price versus the energy price on different axes, so you can see that at least they have the same general shape in terms of seasonality, and that when one goes up, the other goes up with it, generally speaking. So it just gives some comfort level to the markets are working correctly. Next slide, please. Now, in addition to the energy price, capacity price gets unitized or levelized over the number of megawatt hours that are sold ultimately to customers, and that number gets put into a bidder's price. And therefore, when capacity prices get high, you should see a corresponding increase in the bid prices for SOS procurement. And likewise, when capacity prices are lower, you'll see the same effect lowering those prices. So the three blue bars you see are the capacity prices for a single year's delivery period. And it's the same delivery period for capacity it is for SOS supply, which is June 1st to May 31st of any given year. So the first bar, which is $66.15, was last year's delivery of starting June 1st of 24 for a year. The second bar, much higher, jumps up from $66.15 to $270.35. And that's for the 1 year capacity delivery starting in June of 2025. Then to the right of that, lower but also high, is the current price, including the proxy, for 2026, which is $200.51. Now, those blue bars represent for the capacity price that would be used for the non-risky classes, MGS, LGS, and GSP, because those are for 1 year delivery periods. The dashed lines that you see are the average of the blue bars that the dashed lines are between. And the average is what's used for risky because it's a combination of both years. So if you look at the 2024 risky price of $168.50, that has gone up for the 2025 period to $235.43. And it's a fairly substantial increase for residential, and it's an enormous increase in terms of the capacity component for the MGS, LGS, and GSP. So that has to be imputed into a per kilowatt hour price that affects ultimately what bidders use. Next slide, please. In conclusion, the market conditions indicated that Tranche 2 should proceed, and the auctions were well run as usual, and they did accomplish the RFP requirements. The auctions were competitive, and they resulted in winning bids that were consistent with the outlook for the regional energy and capacity markets that I just displayed. So in closing on this public document presentation, Liberty recommends approving these winning bids. And with that, I'll open the up for any questions you have about this content, and also offer to be available for the confidential briefs on the actual results. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Nate, anything further?
No.
Commissioners, do you have any questions? Does any commissioner wish to go into executive session to hear the confidential bidding information? Or do you desire to just wait until it's made public?
Mr. Chair, I think we're going to wait till it's made public. We've all reviewed the confidential information.
Commissioner Drexler?
I move that we approve the bids as presented.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Commissioner Correa?
Aye.
Commissioner Conaway?
Aye.
Mr. Drexler?
Aye.
And I vote aye. The motion carries. Dr. Ledzelter, we send our appreciation to you and our best wishes personally.
Thank you very much, Chairman and Commissioners. Have a great day.
Thank you. Mr. Hardigan.
Thanks, Chairman Winslow. Our next meeting will be February 19th.
Okay, that I believe is the end of our meeting, so we'll now out of session. Thanks very much, everyone.